going from my right, and then we'll introduce everybody that's online.
Scott Kellogg, Alderman.
Dean Veneman, Alderman.
Paul Vollert, Public Works Superintendent.
Scott Young, Fire Chief.
Tim Basorsi, Finance Director.
Shane Blazer, Mayor.
All right, and I will read this names that I got online here, and when I say your name, if you just want to introduce yourself. Andy?
Yes, I'm here.
Alderperson Rayom?
I'm here. Scott, Steve.
Superintendent of School Greg Bourne?
Yep, here. Thank you.
Public Work Director Joe Thierry?
Yep, thank you very much.
City Attorney Sue Schill?
I'm here.
Town of Grand Rapids Board Supervisor Amber France?
Yes, I'm here.
Community Development Director Kyle Kearns?
Present, thank you.
Eric?
Yes, I'm here. I'm a citizen.
Okay. And then we have one person listening in, and Alderperson Kubishak just showed up. If I'll let him settle in here for a moment. You're good? All right. All right, our first item on the agenda is consider for approval the appointment of Leanna S. Johnson as successor agent for the Class A beer license and Class A intoxicating liquor license for Quick Trip Incorporated, doing business as Quick Trip 128, located at 1111 Lincoln Street. It's just a name change on the liquor license application. Everything looks in order. There was nothing flagged by the police department. So, does anyone have any questions on that? Hearing no questions, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have motion and second to approve. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 3 is consider a request from the Wisconsin Rapids Rafters for approval for them to make improvements to Witter Field, including installing more home plate club seating, expanding the Pointcraft River area, and expanding the accessible seating area. Anyone want to speak on this immediately? Shane?
This is Sue. Andy is present from the Rafters if he wants to perhaps go through the request.
Andy, would you like to go through this?
Yeah, absolutely. I can kind of at least get through it. So the first one that's listed here, the home plate club. So last year we added 4 tables into it. This year we're looking to add 4 more. A couple reasons. One, it's the most sought after ticket package within the ballpark and offers a good experience for people down there. Gets you really close to the action. But then also it does offer a great rate of return of within the first season of constructing this, considering everything that happened last year. We're looking to continue to push the dollars coming in for us to make up for what was lost last year. So that's kind of the basis behind this project. It follows the same scope as what we built last year as far as the standards that the city has come to expect us to build this with, working with a lot of people in the permitting department helped us stay that standard this past year, and it actually worked out really well with the water park being built. They, from afar, were able to kind of look at our progress, and if they saw something that wasn't exactly to their standard, they were able to let us know, and we were able to make the corrections right away. So for us, that's kind of the extent of what we'll be doing there. The Pointcraft River was one that we did have approved last year, but with everything that kind of went through, we decided to put a 1-year pause on that one. The reason why we're bringing it back up as well for the upcoming season is we did add a portion onto this project. You will see where it kind of lays out what it would look like. That picture below there, a liquor bar is being added to the left portion of it. Essentially us moving the hot corner shipping container out of that box into a new location. And with us having that liquor license last year, We just didn't get the ability to do the extent of what we wanted with that. And with now looking at a new year, we're looking to take full advantage of that liquor license at the ballpark, and for the first time be able to offer various selections to people that come to the ballpark. This will be the only location at the ballpark that people will be able to get that from. So with that being said, we kind of wanted to construct and kind of put together something similar to what people see with the 2 beer trailers within the ballpark, where it's kind of got a nice bar, got a stand there. It's a nice location for people to walk up to. Just looks nice overall for the partner that will be on that piece as well. And then we have the accessible seating area. We did give a long description, as this was one that we had talked with our league about as well. But essentially the reasoning behind this piece is as the community ages, just over the course of the last 11 years, we've gotten to the point where we used to have handicap seating within the walkway within the bleachers, which creates a tight window, which is why we went to this separate deck that's off to the side of our grandstands. And since we had that built and kind of improved it, we've kind of gotten to the point where that deck for most games, outside of maybe the occasional Monday, it's filled with people that need handicap seating. And we're to the point where we needed to start thinking and start putting our plans in place for, what can we do to improve that? If we have a game where we can't offer handicap seating, that's an issue right there for us. This is our solution to that piece. Essentially with the handicap accessible area where it currently is, we're proposing to go 8 feet onto the fellow territory that is quite large within Winterfield. 8 feet down 1 foot, put in a ramp so people can easily get down into there with their wheelchairs, but still, handicap accessible for people there. And then we would put a shelter over top of that to still cover them from the elements if it were to rain, the sun, overall creating the same experience that they are currently seeing right now within the handicap area. Overall, it would be adding about 15, maybe 16 seats, depending on how the final space works out there. Would also still offer a rail in front of them to put their food or drinks on. And then also they can have the option to have a companion seat next to them as well. So essentially, it's about the same size as the current platform where people have their seats at, with a small ramp going into it. Just to the right of the visitors' dugout, enough space for people to still get in and out of the dugout. And then in addition to the deck itself, we would bring the fencing out 8 feet as well, where the current tarp to cover the field is located. That is more so designated on our end as creating, or I should say eliminating a potential safety issue that you could see there with just this piece jutting out onto the field. If we put the fence line out a little bit further, that would take care of that. And then it also would create a little bit of space by that fan zone area that would allow for the space that was kind of taken away that was used as standing room for people that would come to the ballpark on Thursday, Friday, Saturday when the park was a little bit more full. So it's kind of a multifaceted piece that takes care of two potential things we've seen. But overall, that's kind of the scope of that project as well. Overall, those are the 3 that we're proposing. Definitely open to any questions you may have.
I just got one for you, Andy, and then I'll see if anyone else has any questions for you. You guys are looking to make the appointments. I see on the proposal here, it's proposed project funding is $33,000. Is that what you guys are going to take on, or are you guys looking for anything from the city?
So all 3 of these projects would be completely funded by the Raptors organization, essentially Joven Baseball, the operating LLC.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions for Andy? Alderperson Kellogg?
Andy, I'm in favor of the concept, but I just have a couple questions. Let me see how I can explain this. Basically, as you make improvements and you encroach in the field, with these additional seating, is there standards? I guess I'm worried about liability. As things are added, and I think you've done a great job over the years, and this looks great, but as you add things, what is the standard that can protect the city? I'm thinking of this is off the cuff, but like OSHA, whenever something goes up, the OSHA will look at it to make sure it fits a standard. And when you start to encroach in the field itself, I wonder what standard you look at, just maybe it's reasonable, no problem, or is there a group or agency that you need to look at for future changes? That's it.
Well, I guess as far as the standards for using that follow space, for example, like if you were to look at a couple teams around our league, like in Wausau, the fellow territory when comparing what we have here compared to those organizations is actually quite large. It's one where, with the historic aspect of Witter Field, with how things used to be constructed, the lights on field, and et cetera, it makes sense. That's the reason why it is. For us, we're looking to, continue on with the standard that we have with our fans and with our partners, while also providing it in a safe way. The alternate of, we looked at, do you go into any other parts of the stadium to take care of the handicap? With us over the years building the Craft River, the Rat Trap, it's taken up a lot of space up the lines, and currently to take care of the piece going onto the field, taking advantage of such a large solid territory that we do have, was kind of the thought process behind that. And I think as far as future projects go, I personally have nothing in the works on my end to use any more of the solid territory. I'm not going to say that, myself or even anyone that has my position after me would consider doing that either. But in the meantime, it's just something that in the short term takes care of a potential issue that we're going to see within the next year or two, and offers it in a relative safe way as well.
All right. And the other comment I made is actually to the Common Council, but I think in the future, maybe referrals like this should go through Park and Rec. So there's a panel of people looking at it. Just to have, it seems Park and Rec, that's part of our recreational facilities and so forth. They should look at it first and then come to the Common Council in the future. But I have no problem with the proposal, so.
Yeah, and just on our end to date, I currently have just followed the historical standards that we've had, and if there's anything that needs to change in the future, we can certainly, have that conversation. I'm all for whatever standard needs to be set in and followed moving forward. But yeah, for us, it was just referencing the current users ourselves, and then see, what some of the thoughts are of high school legion programs, of certain projects that we have going in, and referencing and taking their feedback and, incorporating it into a proposal like this, making it more of a group thought process rather than just, hey, this is what the Raptors want to do, but it's, hey, let's take into consideration what the other users are. But if we do need to do that in the future, I'm all for incorporating that into the moving standard.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned about Park and Rec is that commission may feel that they would like to be part of the process, that's all. But I'll make a motion to accept the proposal from Wisconsin Rapid Rafters for the changes as stated to Witter Field.
All right, we have motion and second. Is there any other further discussion, comments, or questions? Mayor?
I just noticed, and IT advised that Joe Terry has his hand raised.
Go ahead, Director Terry.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Staff did a review of this and is pretty excited about the project. We do have some concerns, though, with the home plate club extension. When this was discussed last time, we had some concerns about the encroachment into the field and potential play area. And ultimately, I think, came to some consensus there. We are a little concerned about further expanding that. Other than that, we're excited about all the projects. So it's just a staff's opinion on that.
Yeah, and to kind of answer that, then it's similar to what we had spoke a little bit about last year, but with this current extension, it wouldn't have us going any closer to home plate. It would just follow that same distance that we're currently at, of 42 feet. And when we look at, I'll reference, other, teams within the league and kind of what we've been working through when we first dug into the project last year as well, was what's kind of the sense around our league and in baseball as a whole. And then we see many different distances behind home plate. I referenced Green Bay, where they're at about 28 feet. I referenced Madison, where they're sitting at about 38. So we're above those two organizations. There's certainly a few others that kind of match right where we're at. And then there may be others that I haven't had conversations with that could be slightly deeper, but it's kind of a moving standard as far as what it is. That's kind of the unique thing about baseball and baseball parks, is all of them are constructed different distances to the outfield walls, behind home plate, follow territory is different. That's kind of the fun behind it as well. But as far as the potential safety issue that we had talked about last year, kind of what we did to combat that was we did add padding to the front of the current home plate club extension, and we will be doing the same for the new pieces that we are adding onto it. We did have leftover pieces that we'll be using on there, and we also do work with the padding organization that did put up the outfield wall as well. One thing that we're doing on our own this year is we will be adding padding to the dugouts as well, continuing that safety standard across the park. So overall for us, we won't be going any deeper or any closer, I should say, to home plate, and we'll be continuing to add that padding to that.
Joe, did you have anything in response to that?
No, it was just that. Understand the safety, padding and continuing. It was just something as staff that we wanted to try to avoid as much as possible any further extensions out. So it is just a comment.
All right. Is there any other questions or comments for Andy or anybody else? Hearing or seeing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is consider quadplex referral cost estimates for extending sewer and water to the proposed quadplex project. I think I'll start with Superintendent Bourne on that one. Greg?
Yeah, thanks. And so I guess I don't really have any specific details or additions to share. Just my thanks and thanks on behalf of our group, community group's request to have this be considered. I don't think from the beginning we were looking at any kind of super specific request, just the request to evaluate whether or not it's plausible, and then potential partnership with the city in terms of an in-kind contribution. Of course, that's possible. Based on what I've seen and what has been provided, we don't have a lot of input or opinion with regard to specifically how it's accomplished, just that it is in fact accomplished. So I don't really have any additional details to share with the committee. But if there are questions specific that I can answer, I'm certainly happy to do so.
All right, thank you, Craig. Director Terry, I know there was some discussion about where the money for this would come from, if there was money left over from last year's road construction that would cover this, or how this would possibly be funded.
Sure. So, it's a utility project, whether the utility is planning to fund it or the council makes that determination, or whether it's a carryover resolution. The specifics on the funding might be more appropriate for the finance director. I did include some options and some costs. I'd be glad to go through those. But if you've all taken a look at it, I think, it shows a few different scenarios there and some options.
Just for the public at home that might not be familiar with these options, would you just want to take like a high-level overview at them, so explain what we're looking at?
Sure, be glad to do that. So staff has spoken a couple times with the engineers that are working on the design of this project, POB, and it seems that the consensus is that they would like the facility served from the south if possible. There is an unopened street right-of-way there that is in part in the town of Grand Rapids that can facilitate that, or the services could be directionally bored from an existing main and run to the concession area that way. So we looked at a couple different options. One option is to install an 8-inch sanitary sewer main and a 4-inch water main from 21st Place South, which is just southeast of the proposed project, to a point about 500 feet west of that location, which would allow then service to run off to that concession area. The estimated cost for that would be about $125,000 for materials and labor. And then from there, we calculated some estimates to install a sanitary service lateral from the right-of-way to the concession building location. That cost is estimated at about $35,000. Another option is if some of the surrounding areas are annexed and there's a desire for service there, extending those water main and sanitary services may be desirable. If there's nothing in the short term planned, it might not make sense to install those speculatively. They may sit for a long time before being tied into, but we did want to throw it out there as an option. In that scenario, the sanitary sewer and water is estimated at about $305,000. And of course, the sanitary laterals and water laterals about the same at $35,000. The last option was just really trying to come up with a cost comparison just to determine value and put things in perspective. And that would be to install a sanitary service lateral and water service from existing directionally bored. There's a lot of water in that area. The problem with directional boring the entire sanitary service lateral is that it would likely require a grinder pump or some other way to pump the effluent from the concession building to the main. There might be gravity flow or the ability to do that if it went to the southeast, 21st Place, but that may or may not be desirable for the district and for the project. But we did want to throw that estimate out there too, and that cost looks like it'd be around $90,000. I spoke with Attorney Schill. There were some questions that I had as far as the ability for the city to participate. Because the school is a government agency, there wasn't an issue there. We could enter into an intergovernmental agreement if both the city and the district are supportive of that. And the project could be done in a variety of ways with a variety of financial contributions, some, none, whatever. One of the concerns I had is if it was appropriate, if the city were to do the construction of the lateral from the street right-of-way to the concession building, whether it doesn't matter who's paying for it, is that something that the city can do? Because we're not a licensed contractor, and so generally we're putting in our own infrastructure, and any work outside the right-of-way is done then by a contractor or plumber. As it turns out, with an intergovernmental agreement, the city would be able to perform that work. And again, it'd be at the discretion of the city council, but it is possible to do. We will be meeting with POB, I believe, this Friday to discuss a little bit further. They're a little further along with their plans. No matter what happens, we're looking to try to facilitate work there and depending on the required time frame within the project, if the sanitary and water in the street is a controlling item, meaning that other things can't happen until that gets in, and that has to happen this spring, then we'd work with potentially work with POB to work on the DNR submittals and some of the final planning aspects of that, because our engineering staff is swamped right now getting our projects ready to go. But if that portion of the project can occur later in the year, once we've got our construction projects underway, our engineering staff would have time to finish that design and get those submittals in and take care of it. So we're going to discuss that with POB later this week. But the request was to look at some options and estimates of costs. And so this is our best estimates of cost at this time.
All right, thank you, Joe. Craig, I just had another question for you for people at home that may not understand what this is. Do you want to explain what the quadplex is, where it's going to be located, and the impact that this would have on Wisconsin Rapids?
Sure, absolutely. So the proposed quadplex addition would be on the Lincoln High School property that is currently basically open field, and there's some trees back there, but it's an area that's fairly easily developed. It's kind of, if you're from 16th Street there, behind the track and that sort of area. And the thought process around the quadplex, 2 baseball and 2 softball diamonds is, and then of course the concession building and associated facilities, is a collaborative group effort between multiple stakeholders in the city and the surrounding area for both youth and adult softball and baseball, as well as the school district. And we collaboratively developed a grant application to the Legacy Foundation, and applied to the Legacy Foundation, and had found that they were agreeable to come up with $5.6 million towards the overall project, which is estimated at just shy of $7 million, which means in order to get it wrapped up and completed to the degree and extent that we want to, or that we're able to, that would include, locally raising in terms of in-kind contribution and monetary contribution in terms of marketing rights or simply cash or a check, coming up with those dollars locally to get the rest of the dollars suitable to complete the project. And so that is in process. We have a site out there for folks. We did a press release on the topic when our board approved the acceptance of the grant. That website is www.rapidspride.com. We're going to be going to bid here relatively soon, January 20th, I believe. And then, of course, a lot of that will tell the tale in terms of in-kind contributions and what we're talking about in terms of dollars and cents. And piggybacking onto that, or not related, but part of the overall site development, has to do with the renovation and update of Southwood County 2000. They are not related directly, but they're, of course, related insofar as they're an amenity that not only the district will enjoy, but also the community and other user groups. Would be that the school, we're in a position where we have to renovate the track. It's 20 years old and nearing its end of life, or is basically at its end of life. So that track has to be redone. In some of these conversations, then, there was a very generous offer of a donor who chooses at this time to remain anonymous, who indicated, hey, I'd be interested in giving $500,000 towards putting turf on the football field on Southwood County 2000 if you're in fact going to move in that direction. So that is also kind of incorporated into this quadplex project and part of this fundraising, approach that we've outlined. So at very least, I know for a fact the track is going to get redone because we have to do that. That'll be at the district expense. If we're going to operate track, which we do, we need to update the track. If we can meet our goal of the additional $500,000 to cover the full cost of turfing the football field, which would be $1 million, then that, of course, is going to happen as well. And then the quadplex development and completion would occur. Those would be somewhat simultaneous. And then, Steve, you mentioned what does that mean to the community. Well, frankly, what it means is a higher degree of usability and opportunities to bring varying degrees of things to town, both school-related and youth sport-related and adult league related, where folks are able to utilize the facility, quite frequently. When they come to town, whether it's with their grandkids or kids or whether it's them as adults, they're going to be here to spend the day, the weekend, and they're going to spend dollars here locally for food and gas and, potentially hotels for longer stays for tournaments and those sorts of things. As a parent myself, and knowing now what we do in 2020 or in this era, my kids are on the tail end of that, but it's athletic tourism. And that's how people spend their weekend. So they haul their kids here, they haul their kids there. And what do you do when you're there? You do things because you're not, you're not involved in athletics the entire time. You do things locally in the community in which the tournament is being put on. So that's kind of the long and short of it. And the functionality and the usability of the complex in a general sense would bring, I would argue, much more opportunity to the area in terms of economic development than simply, hey, we get to play baseball and softball in really nice fields.
Thank you, Craig. One other quick question is, some people might look around and say, we got the baseball diamonds on the other side over at by Meade School. We have the ones in the Sandlot Park, and there's some out by Grant Elementary School in Kellner. What would make this one stand out so once someone look at it and say that we're not duplicating the same service?
Yeah, well, one aspect of it that I think is probably the most marketable is the plans are to have at a minimum turf infields. And I recognize and fully understand that you don't need turf in order to play softball or baseball. But on the same hand, if you have turf, then you have a significant increased ability to have one squad walk off and another squad walk on. And you're not relining, you're not dragging the field, you're not, cussing out the former group because they didn't do what they should have done to keep the field maintained and updated. And that's another reason why the district as a partner in this approach is going to be valuable, because quite clearly we can't have facilities in disrepair if they're on school property. So that is an absolute, benefit as far as usability is concerned. I would also say, and I'm not the person to speak to this, but I can only tell you what I've heard from folks involved, and that is there is some limitations, particularly for baseball, as well as for softball and usability and access, pardon me. So there is, tournaments that could come to town in baseball in particular that can't or won't because there isn't the facilities to accommodate that. And so I don't believe that while this would change, I think, the usability or the amount of use in other areas in the city without question, but it also wouldn't just completely wipe out use in other areas. It would be yet another amenity that folks can use.
All right, thank you, Craig. And then Tim, not to put you on the spot, but Joe was talking about the financing options, about carryover resolution, or if there's money left over from last year's construction. I know we're looking at 3 different costs here, ranging from about $150,000 on up. What would it look like for funding this?
Well, basically my recommendation would be, depending on which option you choose, but like for option 1, to install the 8-inch sanitary lane and 4-inch water main from 21st Place to the point 500 feet west, would basically the utilities would fund that infrastructure. And then the cost of $35,000 extending, the service lateral would probably be, paid for from the city. And we would probably, as every March, I bring forward a carryover resolution where we look at, our carryover funds and stuff, and probably would make a recommendation that $35,000 be funded either out of reserves or any contingency that's left over from projects and or other sources.
All right, thank you, Tim. Does anyone else have any comments or questions for anyone on this? And then, because we have 3 options in front of us, I don't think correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we're looking for any action to be approved tonight, just discussion about moving forward until we figure out if we're going to be able to go from which direction we're going to start working from. Is that correct? I mean, it'd be kind of open-ended to make a motion and approve an option and not know which way you're going to start working from yet. And we're waiting on, I believe, they said we're waiting on some other estimates to come back for the project too, which might impact it. Was Paul?
Well, I might be speaking out of school here a little bit, but I think, I think we're bringing this to the committee to make a decision for us to do that, because I don't think that the engineering department is going to move on anything until it's said, yeah, we're going to do this. Part of it too is that, as Joe alluded to, you know, our construction season is busy. This is a dead-end street that there's nothing going on with, and it may be such that, depending upon the time period, we could start this project prior to our stuff going on in the street, because there's no frost and things like that. So if we push this off to February, then it may be closing that window to be able to help them prior to starting on this. So I think that's what the direction or the request is to say, yes, as a city, we approve to provide services to it, you know, or whatever. So I don't know if Joe went away or not. No, he's still there.
Joe, I'll let you weigh in on this, but I guess my only concern is because we have three different options with three different price tags on them, you know, to approve one and then the other two aren't, or are you looking for the committee to approve all three and then Shane?
Yeah, I think the purpose, and Joe can correct me if I was wrong, that the purpose is to bring the options forward, and the committee needs to decide which direction they want to go. And, you know, I think Joe did a good job kind of explaining the three of them and how they could be done. Now it's up to the committee and council to decide which they feel is the best option. I guess personally, I like option one, because, you know, the funding is, some of it's through the utilities, and then there's the cost of the non-right-of-way portion that Tim explained. But I think the whole purpose was to give you these options, the potential different ways that this could be provided to the facility, and then what the council's and the committee's level of support they want to give, and which they think the best option is. Personally, I think option one is by far the best.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I like to make a decision because I think number two is cost prohibited. 300 and some thousand plus 35,000. And what I heard from Joe, that number three is not the best, even though it's the cheapest, but sometimes you get the cheapest isn't the best. And so I'd like to make a motion to, with regard to the quadplex, do number one, install an 8-inch sanitary sewer main and a 4-inch water main from 21st Place to a point 500 feet west, estimated cost of $125,000. Install a sanitary lateral and water service with right-of-way to the proposed concession building located, estimated cost $35,000.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and second on the floor. Is there any other further discussion, comments, or questions? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 5 is consider a request from the town of Grand Rapids for use of City of Wisconsin Rapids property for a walk/bike trail extension from the City of Wisconsin Rapids along County Highway W to Lake Wazecha using city-owned railroad right-of-way from 32nd Street to 48th Street, then connect to North Beach Road from 48th Street to Lake Wazeecha. We have a representative from Grand Rapids with us, who's in the requesters. Amber, we'll start with you.
Sure. Yeah, so essentially we're looking to connect the existing trail that's there along Highway W to Lake Wazeecha. Currently it ends around Wazeecha Avenue, and walkers and bikers have to take Wazeecha Avenue to Lake Wazeecha, which is, there's a pretty small shoulder, so it's not the safest option. So we were looking at possibly utilizing the railroad right-of-way from 32nd to 48th, keeping it as natural as possible so that it doesn't inhibit anything for snowmobiles in the winter. But currently there's, some taller grass. There are some hard-packed areas where, people, it looks like, have been using the trail already. But really looking at just putting some hardpack down on areas that are too soft for bikes to be able to get through. But again, keeping it as natural as possible, not blacktopping, and making sure that it's still usable for those using it currently.
All right. We have a memo here that was done by our Public Works Director, Joe Terry, and there were some conditions on this. Were you familiar with these conditions, Amber?
Yeah, yep, I took a look at it.
Okay. And you guys in the township are okay with the conditions?
Yeah, I think that that's something, we have a meeting tonight that we're going to have some discussion around that, the new conditions moving forward, yep.
All right. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Go ahead, Joe.
Thanks. After some discussion with Attorney Schill, I guess the recommendation on here is to approve the request with limitations. The one additional thing that we talked about was an easement versus a lease agreement. And Attorney Schill recommends a lease agreement. And I guess I've had experience with the bike trail system where I used to work. And we did the same thing there. It worked really well. So I guess, the action on the referral for, the recommendation for action doesn't specifically include that. It suggests any documentation or recommended by the city attorney. But I just wanted to throw that out there and see if the town felt there were any issues with that. But I do think that it accomplishes the same goal. It allows that trail to be built. And then, typically these lease agreements are, for $1, whatever. It's primarily just to get it out there with, an option to renew, in 50 years or whatever. So, I did want to throw that out there, and if Attorney Schill has anything else to expand on that, but that would be my recommendation is to approve it, and with the conditions expressed by the utility and as a long-term lease.
Thank you, Joe. Attorney Schill, I saw you had your hand up there. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think actually what I would be recommending would be a license versus an easement. We do have some, it's really a non-exclusive use because I think we have the snowmobilers that use that too. And I think what I thought was probably going to happen was that once you gave approval to pursue this, that we would come up with some type of a license agreement. And then that would be approved by both of the governing bodies. If that's not the case and you're okay with us, not bringing an agreement back, we can proceed, and then you'll just trust us to come up with an agreement. But I guess I was thinking that maybe we would come up with an agreement once you've given the approval to go ahead with it, and then that could be approved by both of the bodies. And I think the other part of it too is to firm up the agreement we have with the snowmobile club, because I think we're having trouble finding that, and it would be good to at this time to make sure that we're on the same page with that also. And I think there is some time, I think, to get that done. It could be done. I don't think it can be done in by next week for the council meeting, but perhaps at the next month, we could have the agreement.
Okay, and you said you wanted to do a license over a lease, correct?
Yeah, it's a license agreement. It's not an easement, and it's not really a lease agreement. It's a license that still can be for, there can still be consideration for it, but generally when you don't, when it's not necessarily non-exclusive use, it's sometimes better to have a license if you're the landowner versus an easement or a lease agreement. But, you know, some of it is just semantics, I guess. The terms are probably going to be pretty similar, but it's more of a legal term.
Amber, if you're still there, would you be okay with the verbiage change if our city attorney presents a license agreement for the town to review?
Yep, that works. Yep, that's fine.
Okay. Does anyone else have any comments or questions on this? Alderperson Kubaschak?
Not really a question, but I think it kind of is a question for Sue. Is this a case where you're looking for us to give you an up or down on this? I mean, the semantics, like you said, the licensure, or the easement, or whatever, that's what you guys are going to do in the negotiation. But what you're looking for is basically if the committee has the pleasure of wanting to continue this, then that's what I'll make a motion to compel staff to negotiate with the town of Grand Rapids to get this done. Whatever the language is, I don't care. You know, right? Or is that so? If that's the case, if that's fine for you to move forward with that, then my motion will be to have staff find the language to work with the town of Grand Rapids to get this project done.
Right, and then I guess it's more if you can afford another month to actually have the agreement in front of you, that would be the preferred route. Otherwise, you can give us the general direction, well, okay, we're giving the approval to work out an agreement with them, and that you don't necessarily care to see it back. But I would think it probably would be better practice to have work on the agreement and then bring it back to both of the bodies so that you exactly are right, Thad, to give us the approval to go ahead and work on it. And I think it shouldn't take too long to knock that out.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and second to direct city staff to come up with the agreement and then bring it back to this body next month for approval. Is that got it? All right, motion and second. Is there any other further discussion? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 6 is consider for approval a grant application for an Assistant to Firefighters Grant, AFG, in the amount of $62,525. Chief Young?
All right, this grant is an annual grant we do every year. This year, we're looking for the amount that you said, $62,525. All the items that we're requesting in here are appropriate with FEMA for the life expectancy of short or intermediate. The items we're looking at seeking through the grant are 5 RAD-57 pulse oximeters with the ability to measure carbon monoxide. One would go on each ambulance and one on one of the frontline fire engines for rehab at a fire scene or a hazmat incident. 3 thermal imager cameras, one each for our 2 frontline engines and our aerial ladder. Our 3 imager cameras are outside of the life expectancy according to FEMA, so this fits perfectly for this opportunity. 1 battery operated spreader cutter, that's an extrication tool for vehicle extrication from a motor vehicle accident. We currently have one on our squad, and that is approximately 12 to 15 years old, and that is an intermediate life expectancy, and we are outside of the range of that, so that's an appropriate request through FEMA. And then 1 fit testing machine for SCBA mask and our N95 respirators. Each year we're required by FEMA to fit test our members for SCBA mask, and that's almost impossible to do right now with COVID, so Even at that, we're renting that machine, so we'd have the ability to fit test our own members, and in times like these, continue on with annual requirements.
Thank you, Chief. Is there any questions or comments for the chief? I'll make a motion to approve the Assistance to Firefighters Grant in the amount of $62,525.
I'll second.
The motion second. Is there any other further discussion? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 7, consider approving a proposal for architectural design and addition and renovation of the fire stations. Chief, I'll start with you again.
All right, so at the last council meeting, it was approved to move forward with the station renovation and addition. The next step in that project, the phase, would be the schematic design of the station. So we requested a proposal from Five Bugles Design, and we received that proposal. City Attorney has looked it over, and so has Public Works Director Joe Terry. Tim and myself met with Robert Krakowski from Five Bugles Design last Thursday, and we went through the proposal line by line, and at that point, we were comfortable with it, but after that, the city attorney has reviewed it, and so has Joe, and they have some suggestions to the agreement that they would like to see. The suggestions that the city attorney have were forwarded to Five Bugles Design, and their legal counsel had no objections to her suggestions. The little issue we're running into right now is Joe has some issues that we would like to address with them, but I don't think it's anything that would hold up the project. That I think as long as we stayed within the scope, we should be able to move forward and address those as long as this is approved tonight. So I think everybody here hopefully had a copy of the legal agreement that they sent for the architectural design. And the bottom line is what we're using Five Bugles Design right now for is for the schematic design of it. And in there, there's some minor details that we need to work out. Do you have anything, Tim, that?
Sure, just kind of, basically the architectural contract is, their fee would be 9.5% of the cost of the construction project. And on that, they have various phases in which at the 20% level, they call it the schematic design phase. That's where they stop. They review it with the appropriate city personnel that are on track. That's where they develop their first, they kind of start refining their cost estimate for that. And then once everyone's in agreement that, we're proceeding as planned and what was approved by council, and it's within the parameters, cost-wise within what council approved, we then go to the next phase called design development phase. And that's basically another 20%. They stop, review, and throughout the whole time in each of these phases, they're further refining that cost estimate, and an appropriate city staff would be reviewing to make sure that it's within the parameters approved by the council. And then the next phase would be the construction document phase, and that's where they're basically putting together the construction documents and the bid phase, and then they have the bidding phase where we actually put it out for bid, and then the last 15% is the construction phase, where they have in the contract where they'll have 16 on-site visits throughout the construction process, and then they also have 2 meetings for each of the phases. And also in here is that one of the other things that we'll have to address and probably bring back to this committee is the construction management. This contract does not include construction management, although it does include where they will assist us in, sending out, soliciting proposals for those services. I don't believe that here at the city we have, the time or the personnel to, be kind of a construction manager for this. So they would assist us in seeking proposals for that. And based on our conversations with them, they would like that process to begin early February, because they like to have that person on board, is early in the design, because then they can, contribute and be part of those design meetings and, and have further input on, the final budget, estimate. Five Bugles does provide that service, and I inquired as to whether they would, put in a bid for that, and they said at this point, their construction management team, it was unsure whether, they had a pretty full schedule, whether they'd be able to perform those services. But he also said there's good thing that we could put in a bid, or we could partner with somebody else as part of that. So, if this is approved, and once this is worked out, that'll be the next step, as we'll be bringing back, proposals for construction management. It could be the same firm to provide those, but if they don't have the manpower and resources to do it, we would probably recommend a third-party construction manager to oversee the contractor.
All right, thank you, Tim. And just a question for you, when you're talking about these milestones in completion, like at the 20% mark, if they come, this is where they're going to stop and take a pause and adjust the cost, and if there's the cost goes up significantly, this is something that will then be brought back to the committee for change order and...
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's until we really get to where we, bid it out and select the bid is really where we're approving the final amount. But these milestones say, are we within the parameters? Obviously, if all of a sudden, once they get into it and they start really designing it, and all of a sudden the numbers start coming back that it's significantly or, materially higher than what, when the council, I do believe it was last month, approved the options and an estimated cost, if it can exceed that, yeah, I definitely would recommend we would be bringing it back to make sure that the council was comfortable with doing that, or we might have to kind of say, okay, how do we get back within what the original approved budget was? So yeah, we'll be monitoring that, reporting back, and and it's something that we can supply the committee with just updates as we reach those milestones too, just to say that we're on track with it too.
Yeah, that given if we got updates, that'd be good. Is there any other questions for Scott?
I don't understand the difference between a construction manager and if we send this out and we have a company. Wouldn't the company manage the construction? Wouldn't that be part of their package or proposal?
I mean, I'm not, maybe there's probably other people that are more qualified on how these construction projects go, but, I kind of look at it, and Joe Terry, are you still there? With the aquatics, we had Myron actually constructing the facility, but we also had MSA as that oversight to make sure that the contractor's doing everything according to the design, and like I said, someone else can probably speak more eloquently to this than I am. I'm a numbers guy, but basically they're overseeing the project, making sure that based on the design, the contractor's doing what he's supposed to do.
Okay.
And when we discussed it with Five Bugles, he says that the majority of their projects where they have a construction manager are the ones that go smoothly. Where they don't have one is where a lot of times they can run into the problems with the contractor, or the contractor does not do exactly what the design is dictating too. That's another oversight thing, so.
That makes sense. I was just curious.
And I would like to point out, I believe in their original cost projection that that is part of the professional and legal fee, so I don't think it's going to add on to the cost that, the estimate that you agreed to fund for this project. So I believe that, in fact, I know it's in the original cost projection. But with that, with Joe's concerns, I think we were going to have a city meeting with Mayor Blazer, Tim, myself, Sue, and Joe Terry, just to kind of address the minor concerns that Joe had. And so, Sue had a recommendation for tonight, if we want to approve this, that, the motion would be to approve the agreement with Wendell Architects for professional design services for the proposed additions and remodels of both fire stations. And this is where we get into non-substantive changes to the agreement may not be made without the approval of the city attorney. So I think we'd like to just review that agreement yet. That's a pretty generic agreement that most architects use for their designs. The minor changes that we're looking for, I think, can be addressed this week and done before the common council meeting. And at that point, I would hope to have the final agreement ready to vote on, so. Now, Sue, do you have anything in there if you're still there?
Right, I guess they made the mostly legal changes and liability changes that I wanted them to make, which is great. And Joe has a number of concerns that I think really aren't substantive at all. So what I suggested is that if the committee wanted to approve this agreement, and that any non-substantive changes might be made upon my approval, so that or the alternative, if you're, and hopefully that we would have this final agreement to you by the time of the council. But sometimes we have in the past agreed or approved agreements, and that there might be some minor changes as long as they weren't substantive that I could approve, and then it wouldn't necessarily have to come back to you. So I guess it's up to your comfort level. I don't believe any of the changes they're not about the cost or really responsibilities or anything like that. I think they're pretty minor, and once we talk them through, I think they'll get worked out.
Mayor?
Joe has his hand raised.
Oh, Joe?
Yeah, just a quick clarification too. There's a difference here between construction oversight and construction management. What we had from MSA, for example, on the aquatics project was construction oversight. Construction management is actually managing the project. So on the aquatics project, for example, Myron Construction as the general provided those services. So that's coordinating all of the contract crews, subcontractors. The materials need to be submitted and reviewed by the architect. All of those tasks are done by a project manager. And so that's a little different. And I just wanted to clarify kind of what those responsibilities are. I spoke with Chief Young, and he's some of the other projects that other fire station type projects. This is a pretty common occurrence with some of the more public works projects, not so much. So like he mentioned, we're going to have that conversation and get a few of those details ironed out so we're comfortable with it. But like Sue said, there's really nothing substantive about the agreement. It's just some clarification. And I just wanted to point that out for the committee that it is a different level of service than what maybe MSA provided at the aquatics.
Thank you, Joe. Any other questions or comments?
I can make a motion if you want. Want me to make a motion, or?
You can if you'd like, Scott.
I'll make a motion to consider the proposal for architectural design for an addition and renovation of the fire station.
All right, we have a motion and second on the floor. Is there any other further discussion? Before we vote, I just want to tell the chief, I know that this fire department thing's been going on for a while, and I really sincerely hope that you get the building and the space that you need for you and your guys. So.
Thank you, yeah, we're kind of excited, so we can.
All right.
It's been a while, thank you.
Well, public safety is extremely important, and you guys do a heck of a job for the community, and I want to make sure that our fire department has the best that they can possibly have going forward.
We appreciate it, thank you.
Not a problem. Thad, second. All right, we have motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 8 is review and approve proposals to provide uniform and entry rug services to the City of Wisconsin Rapids buildings. Paul?
Thank you. So as it says in the referral request, the existing contract expired 12/31 of 2020. It was a 5-year agreement that was put in place with my predecessor, Jim Borski. It was originally a 3-year contract with a 2-year extension that was added onto it. The contract is for providing uniforms for the public works staff, and as it says, entry rugs that are within City Hall, Centralia Center, City Garage, the wastewater treatment plant, and then the sign shop that's currently down in the old lift station. We requested 3 proposals from 3 vendors that work in this area. 2 of them returned their proposal on time. The 3rd vendor returned the proposal here late this afternoon at 4 o'clock, so technically it's after the requested time. Everyone received this except for Alderman Kubishek. I'll run you over one quick. UniFirst is the current vendor that we have, and we've had them, like I said, for 5 years. I believe they were also in place prior to that existing contract. As you can see on the information that I handed to you, UniFirst is under 50%, probably around 40% of what the other vendor was. Like I say, Airmark was the vendor that did not turn theirs in on time, so that's why it's showing 0. But if you put their numbers into it, they are 23,485. So they're still substantially higher than what UniFirst is. We have had some issues with some of the uniforms that were provided by UniFirst, but I think those are things that we can work through. And so my recommendation would be to go with a 2-year contract or a year-to-year contract with them to see if we can get those things situated between the administration of the contract. Biggest issues is uniforms not coming back, new employees starting, taking 4, 5, 6 weeks to get uniforms in place and things like that, which are all contrary to the contract. So I think if we work with them on that, they're truly a local vendor because they do the cleaning of the uniforms and everything like that in-house, and where Cintas hauls it in to their processing plant or delivery facility from, I believe, the Fox Valley or whatever. So it would be my recommendation to continue with a year-to-year contract with UniFirst. With the prices that they provided.
I'd feel comfortable making a motion to accept the contract with the UniFirst for a period of 1 year.
I guess I have a question. Should we have it 1 year with the idea that it could be a 2-year extension based on performance? So is it going to come back to us and we have to bid it out every year? That's what I was thinking.
I guess where I was going with the motion, just listening to what Paul said, is if they were having some issues, to see if they could work it out this year and then bring it back next year and see if anything changed. But I mean, I see where you're coming from too, like it basically give,
Yeah.
if he works it out, it'd give him the authority then to enter into a 2-year contract. I'd be amicable to amend the motion to include option to give the director of, the superintendent of Public Works the authority to enter into a 2-year contract if he would feel that, if the issues are worked out. I'm sorry, I'm struggling for words here.
Okay, I'll second that.
I guess real quick, I to kind of piggyback on what Scott just mentioned is that with this, if we only do a 1-year contract, they can raise the rates next year, and say, hey, this is what it is. Whereas do we want to, because I think what we're looking for, what Mr. Vollard was kind of alluding to, is like an escape clause in a contract, rather than only having a short-term contract, because if these numbers are actually, are they pretty good, or are they as good, if not better, than what they were previous? If in fact they are, we would want to lock them in for a long-term deal, with the caveat that if they're not providing services, then we'll go with somebody else. But if they're able to provide the services, we want that number, because obviously, comparatively to the other one that's on the sheet, it's a really good number. But there is a possibility that if we go a year, and they say, well, we only had a 1-year contract, well, our expenses went way up. But if we're in an agreement, a long-term agreement, that might benefit us. Just spitballing here.
No, I see what you're saying. Tim, you, Sig?
Yeah, and so, sorry, I misspoke. The original request was for a guaranteed pricing for 2 years. UniFirst is willing to do that, keep these prices for 2 years, and then each additional year after that, there was an option for year 3, 4, and 5. There would be a 3% increase to the prices for those years or whatever. Like you said, Alderman Kubishak, if we have, there's, in the contract, there should be a way of getting out of it, and I misspoke.
Thanks, Paul. Just thinking if I need to rescind the original motion or. Scott, would you be willing to hold your second if I just directed that language was put into the contract to be able to exit the contract if the service was less than satisfactory?
Yeah, the concern that was the concern I had, not to have to come back every year and then prices change more so. So, yeah, I would take.
All right. So we have just for clarification, it's enter into a 1-year contract with giving the Public Works Superintendent the ability to enter into a 2-year contract if he's satisfied with the services provided, and giving the Public Works Superintendent the authority to exit the contract should the services be less than satisfactory from the servicer.
I'll second it.
All right. All right, we have a motion and second. Is there any other further discussion on this item? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 9 is review and approve purchase of one 16-foot mower. Paul, I'll start with you again.
Yeah, so you'll see in the referral request, the current lawnmower that we have was a 1995. Fortunately for us, prior to my employment with the city, we had a sister to this machine that started on fire fire, and we had to take it out of service. So we've kept that piece of equipment in the back, and we've used it as a boneyard, and have pretty much stripped it down to nothing. But this machine is past its service life, and so we requested proposals this fall, and actually had demos of this machine and a machine from Reinders, which is a Toro lawnmower. We had some issues with, we currently own one of these Jacobson's HR 800s, and we weren't able to use it the way that we wanted to, and we brought it up to one of the salespersons who had experience in the maintenance end of things, and he made some adjustments on it through the computer and safety sensors, and so we're now able to use it the way that we want to. The Toro, as you'll see, was $3,600 more expensive, and so we feel that this machine, this Jacobson HR 800, will serve our needs. It's also has less maintenance activities on it and things like that, because it's all hydraulically driven mower decks instead of belt driven. And so also because of the cost, it's the one that we choose, and we won't have to stock additional parts on the shelf because we'll have 2 of the same in inventory. We also looked at putting mower decks on the front of our sidewalk tractors to try to utilize those more frequently than what we currently do. And we've gone to different municipalities that are using them, and we just really don't have the the smooth park settings, you know, in our parks where they're feasible to run. So this is our best option to control the grass growth in our parks and street right-of-ways.
All right. I'd make a motion to purchase the Jacobson HR 800 16-foot four-wheel drive mower from Horse Distributing Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $87,890. All right, we have a second, and go ahead, Ted.
Mr. Vollard, I guess I was kind of looking at this, the way it said a 16-foot mower, it's not, the mower isn't 16 foot, it's a 16-foot deck on the
Correct.
mower, right? So
Yes.
we don't need a ladder to access it or anything.
Unless you're really tall, you don't need a ladder. But no, it's 3-gang mower. It has the 2 bat wings and the one in front of it.
Perfect, thank you.
Are there any other questions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 10 is review and approve a proposal to purchase TAG equipment trailer. Paul?
Yeah, so last spring, we added to our fleet a skid steer, something that we've never had in our fleet before. We've rented them when we needed to and things like that. We thought we could get by using a trailer that we currently have in our fleet. And the trailer that we were using is also what we use for our smaller lawnmowers to haul them around town and things like that. We found a lot of times that we were in competition with the parks activities and things like that. And so then we were using our equipment trailer that we also replaced last spring. But we only have, in our big truck fleet, we only have 3 trucks that have trailer hitches on them. And so, you know, we were driving things around town and everything like that. So we are, the TAG equipment trailer that we replaced for moving our dozer and rollers and heavy construction equipment, we are currently putting that on the auction here as we speak. And the thought process is that revenue that we create from the sale of that, because that's from, I believe it's like a 1985 or 90, should generate enough revenue that it'll pay for this trailer. But this trailer gives us the flexibility to be able to not need a Class A CDL, so anyone that can pull a trailer can move the skid steer from place to place. And then we, you know, every single one of our 1-tons in our fleet has a trailer hitch on it and trailer brakes, so that, like I said, it just gives us more flexibility, and it's a little bit heavier trailer. What happened is when we were doing all the tree planting this spring, and we had our auger on the front of the skid steer, we actually, by chance, noticed that the trailer that we were using, the frame was actually starting to flex on it, and so was really underbuilt. It was, as far as gross vehicle weight was substantial enough to be able to haul it. It just the way that it was built, probably was a little bit under production for what we wanted to do. So we went through, we like I said, my referral at the time, it was during the holidays. Not all the vendors were able to get back to us because they were trying to make sales on people that had to write checks before the first of the year and things like that. So we did get 3 proposals. The proposals range from $9,000 to $13,500. It's my recommendation that we purchase a Minnesota trailer from LK Trailer Sales LLC in Hewitt, Wisconsin, for $9,080. Like I said, it's $4,000 less than the 2 other manufacturers are within $200 of each other, but their trailers are a little bit kind of probably overkill for what we're trying to do.
Is there any questions or comments for Paul?
I was just curious, what's a skid steer? I should maybe know this, but I don't know.
So the skid steer that we purchase is a track skid steer, so it's just it's virtually a tractor that's on tracks. You know, we use it for moving black dirt. It's versatile because it uses a lot of hydraulic motors. You can put probably hundreds of attachments on it, from post hole diggers to power rakes to trenchers to milling machines, brooms, and things like that.
I was
So,
just curious. Okay, thanks.
yeah, we use it on our construction project mostly for backfilling the curb, shaping black dirt. We use it in our alleys now for grading alleys out and things like that. So it's an extremely versatile piece of equipment, kind of a small bulldozer that you can use in smaller areas.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I'll second. We have motion and second. Is there any other further discussion? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 11 is audit of the bills. I don't have the check numbers in front of me, and I'm trying to get to them. Tim, do you have those check numbers offhand?
6523 to 6865.
I'll make a motion to pay check numbers 6523 to 6865.
I'll second.
We have a second by Alderperson Kellogg. Is there any further discussion, comments, or questions? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 11 is to set the next meeting date. Bring up my calendar here. The first Tuesday in February is February 2nd. And is 4:30 working okay for everyone, Thad? Okay. All right. All right, so our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 2nd at 4:30 PM. Got that. And our next item is adjournment. Got a motion by Alderperson Kuschak to adjourn. Second by Alderperson Kellogg. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none, committee will vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, ayes have it, and we stand adjourned at 5:57 PM. Thank you, everyone, for being here.